Hafiday, welcome to this special presentation of our series, Flight of the Sihek. My name is Thomas Manglona, the Chief Regional Correspondent for KUAM News, and today I'm reporting from Saipan. But it was in July where we got a chance to visit Wichita, Kansas, to document the massive conservation effort happening to save the Guam Sihek at the Sedgwick County Zoo. We spent time with researchers and biologists throughout the week to document that effort. There are just over 100 Sihek left in captivity. They're extinct in the wild. In our first report, we learn about the local effort on Guam to save the Sihek. The Guam Micronesian kingfisher, or Sihek, is considered extinct in the wild. A massive effort involving various government and nonprofit agencies wants to change that.
So the Sihek project is a decades-long work of captive rearing the Sihek, and we're at a point now where on top of the captive rearing part, there is now a potential release component.
That turning point could happen next year with the release of the Sihek on Palmyra Atoll, managed by the Nature Conservancy and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, with birds raised at the Sedgwick County Zoo in Wichita, Kansas. KUAM will be reporting from Kansas this week, but the story starts in Guam. Anthony Tornado is a local biologist with the Department of Agriculture.
We're not just breeding birds so they can stay in zoos. We're breeding birds so that way they can go out into the wild where they belong. Guam and the Marianas have two unique Sihek species. The CNMI has their own beautiful Sihek. It's a white and cerulean wing colored bird. And here on Guam, we have our cinnamon colored Sihek with the cerulean wings.
The Sihek on Guam has been extinct in the wild since the late 1980s, amid threats like the brown tree snake and habitat loss. According to the Smithsonian, there are less than 145 birds in human care at 24 facilities and one breeding facility on Guam.
What we are doing now is trying to gear up at least 6 birds to release on Palmyra. And of course, being in captivity so long, sometimes these birds over time may lose their ability to rear their young.
The goal is to raise a wild population that can sustain itself.
When we lose these natural resources, we lose the cultural heritage and identity that is associated with these animals. And to my understanding, there is a legend here on Guam about a Sihek, and that the female Sihek was a loud woman in the village, and a Tautamotna changed her into Sihek, and that legend kind of stuck over time.
It's a legend that many are striving to help breathe new life into so that the Sihek can be heard again. Thomas Manglona, KUAM News, Wichita, Kansas. KUAM's reporting in Wichita, Kansas is made possible through a partnership with the international conservation charity ZSL. We thank them for their partnership, and we'll have more on our series right after this. Welcome back to our special presentation of our series, Flight of the Sihek. When we got to Kansas, we spent a week with aviculturists from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. as they took care of the Guam Sihek. We saw the process firsthand. In our next story, we take you inside the quarantine translocation unit. It's 6 a.m. at the Sedgwick County Zoo. Erica Royer with the Smithsonian Conservation Biology Institute and Claire McSweeney from the Zoological Society of London prepare to start a 12-hour period of feedings for 4 Guam Sihek chicks.
We're going to be weighing the chicks, checking all the temperatures of their incubators, and then calculating how much food they're going to get for the day, and at each feeding, if they're due for any vitamins today or diet changes.
It's a delicate process they've mastered since the Sihek chicks first hatched in June after their eggs were transported from facilities across the nation. This zoo is one of many involved in the program. The quarantine unit housed within this container holds renewed hope for the reintroduction of the Guam Sihek into the wild. There are just over 100 birds in captivity across the nation. I'm here at the Sedgwick County Zoo quarantine unit in Wichita, Kansas, where 4 Sihek chicks are being raised as part of a long-term effort to reintroduce them back into the wild. The youngest of them just 8 days old and the oldest 42 days old. One by one, each Sihek chick is carefully examined and fed.
So when they first hatch, they're on a really small baby mouse that we chop up even smaller for them into really tiny pieces. And then as they get older, their diet changes, so they get some slightly older mice. They also start to be introduced to an owl, which is helping to replicate the variety that they would get in their diet post-release.
They're also training the Sihek to associate a whistle with food during the rearing process.
And so hopefully after they're released, we can continue to supplementary feed the chicks because someone can blow the whistle, have food available, and then the birds will know to come towards that sound and hopefully get some food if they're not doing so well or catching it for themselves.
The Sihek raised this year will be integrated into a captive breeding program. The project, involving various government and nonprofit agencies, ended up with fewer fledglings than the minimum required for translocation this year. However, they're now more prepared to raise another group of Sihek for release on Palmyra Atoll next year. Thomas Manglona, KUAM News, Wichita, Kansas. Thank you so much to Erica and Claire for guiding us throughout the process for that week. We'll hear from them more later in the program. One of the biggest questions we got when we made our way to the Sedgwick County Zoo was why Kansas? Well, we got that answer after sitting down with the Sedgwick County Zoo CEO Scott Newland, who shares the vital role zoos play in this effort. The Sedgwick County Zoo and its president, Scott Newland, are no strangers to the Marianas.
Sedgwick County Zoo has been involved with both Guam rails and Guam kingfishers for over 20 years, and that is kind of how I became familiar with both of these programs and how I kind of got started as the management team for both of these species.
Newland, whose aunt served in the Navy on Guam, visited the region for over a decade and works closely with local agencies and longtime Marianas-based wildlife biologist Suzanne Medina. He served as the Species Survival Plan Coordinator for both the Guam Coco and Sihek, leading plans to maintain the population.
We are trying to produce birds of both species to support the releases on Rhoda for Coco and then our efforts for Sihek in the future.
His work in the Marianas is part of the reason Kansas is now at the center of Guam Sihek recovery. The zoo is a founding member of the Association of Zoos and Aquariums. What's happening in Kansas is critical to meet metrics set by U.S. Fish and Wildlife for translocation.
We have to show that our techniques are valid, that our survivability is going to be good. Obviously, we don't want to spend a lot of time and resources to try to release Sihek back and have it not be successful.
That release is now set for next year at Palmyra Atoll, which is managed by the Nature Conservancy and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. It's one step closer to bringing the birds to Guam, which is difficult to do right now.
At the moment, we seem to have no easy route to get birds to Guam. Historically, Continental was our go-to, and then obviously when United and Continental merged, United was a great partner and has been a great partner. But right now there is an embargo for us to be able to get either Coco or Sihek. Even if we were ready to bring Sihek back to Guam, I don't have a reliable way to get those birds there on a normal basis.
Even getting the Sihek to Palmyra is a massive logistical challenge they've been preparing for. But first the eggs have to be flown or driven to Kansas for the quarantine process from some of the 24 stateside facilities with Guam Sihek.
What we found to be true is, like many things here in the zoo, the animals don't read the manual that we create. Even though we said we're going to use these specific pairs and we should be able to get 20 to 24 eggs out of these pairs, they didn't listen to any of that. We have learned so much this year in this process that it's actually going to make us definitely more successful in 24 when we're ready to try another cohort of birds moving out to Palmyra.
Thomas Manglona, KUAM News, Wichita, Kansas. Thank you so much, Scott. We'll have more on our Flight of the Sihek series when we come back. Thank you so much for sticking with us and joining us for our special presentation of our Flight of the Sihek series. In our next report from Kansas, we learn about a breakthrough related to whistle training. Here's more. It's being described as a major breakthrough for the Guam Sihek here at the Sedgwick County Zoo in Wichita, Kansas. For the first time, they're being trained to associate the sound of a whistle with food, which will greatly help researchers in the future when they're released back into the wild. A 44-day-old Guam Sihek showing signs of progress for its species' expected release on Palmyra Atoll next year. The first video on the left, captured by Erica Royer from the Smithsonian's National Zoo and Conservation Biology Institute, shows the bird's usual behavior before it's fed. The second video shows a drastic change. Watch as the Sihek flies straight to her bowl after the whistle. Royer told KUAM it's a first for the Guam Sihek, offering a promise for the species to learn that association, which would help recall birds back on Palmyra to support their feeding and ability to weigh them. It underscores the work they've been doing around the clock in recent months.
The importance of bringing the eggs here to hatch is that we want them to hatch in this quarantine and biosecure facility so that we're not introducing anything foreign, like different parasites or diseases, to a place like Palmyra Atoll that is so biosecure and protected. We want to make sure we're also bringing healthy chicks there so that they have the best chance of survival.
The oldest of 4 Sihek chicks at the facility also demonstrates the gradual change in how they raise birds as they age.
Today we're going to weigh the oldest chick. We don't weigh her as often as the younger chicks because we want to be more hands-off with her. We want her to be eating on her own. So we're just going to do a routine weight check today, and the best way to do that for juveniles and adults and to keep them calm is actually to use a tube like this. So we'll catch her up and then put her head first into the tube. And that just keeps it dark around her eyes, keeps her calm and still so that we can quickly put her on the scale, get a weight, and then get her back so she can eat her breakfast.
And every day brings new lessons as they track the bird's every movement, its weight, diet, behavior, and even feces.
We have learned so much. Erica and I spend most of the day going, oh wow, yes, if we just tweak that, that would be better, or oh, we didn't know that was going to work out like that. That's great. I'm glad we know that now.
Even though the birds are not being released in Guam, this is an important step to get to that point. And so that's still all on our minds to make sure that the birds will one day return to Guam.
Thomas Manglona, KUAM News, Wichita, Kansas. That was truly an amazing thing to witness. Now, when we were in Kansas, we also got a chance to visit the zoo's aviary, where we saw a huge sign that greeted us saying, half a day. That's when we learned about other programs that they collaborate with local agencies here in the Marianas on related to other Marianas bird species. Here's that story.
The Mariana Avifauna Conservation Program grew out of concerns for the birds on the northern islands after what happened with the birds on Guam. So the brown tree snake has been sighted on Saipan. So conservationists, the Division of Fish and Wildlife, CNMI officials were very worried about the bird populations on the northern islands.
Those efforts began over a decade ago in the CNMI through a collaboration with the local government and the nonprofit Pacific Bird Conservation. Concerns led to the involvement of partners like the Sedgwick County Zoo in Wichita, Kansas, where they're able to assist in collecting the number of birds needed before translocation. It's been a success.
We're ahead of schedule on our translocations. So at this point, we're kind of reevaluating what is our next step. We've successfully established assurance populations of the Saipan bridled white-eye, the Tinian monarch, the rufous fantail, and the Mariana fruit dove, and the golden wide-eye.
She said the success comes from their techniques and the ability to move birds by boat instead of by helicopter, allowing larger translocations. Back at the Sedgwick County Zoo, they've put Mariana's birds on full display in the aviary for visitors from around the world to learn about.
Going back to the very beginning when the Sihek were brought into zoos to help breed them up and hopefully save the population. It started out with a handful of zoos, but as the population grew, more zoos needed to get involved to hold the birds. We needed more space to hold the birds. And we were interested out here in Wichita, Kansas, because we were involved already in the MAC project. We wanted to be more heavily involved with the kingfishers.
It's a massive effort to save the Sihek, and the zoo is where the quarantine translocation unit sits with hopes of an eventual release into the wild next year on Palmyra Atoll.
The thing that I always want to tell people in the Marianas is thank you for trusting us with your birds.
Thomas Manglona, KUAM News. And we'll have more from our trip to Wichita, Kansas, right after this. Welcome back to the show. Before we left Kansas, we had the very rare opportunity to live stream the feeding of Guam Sihek chicks at the Sedgwick County Zoo. Here's a clip from that live stream in July with Erica and Claire again. All right, welcome back. We're now live again at the Sedgwick County Zoo at the quarantine translocation unit in Wichita, Kansas, and we're grateful to be joined by two people who are heavily invested in this project. And we'll go ahead and start off with introductions.
Hi everyone, my name is Erica Royer. I'm an aviculturist for the Smithsonian's National Zoo and Conservation Biology Institute. We've been here in Wichita in the quarantine unit since May 21st, raising or incubating eggs and rearing chicks. And I've worked with Sihek for about 9 years now at SCBI. And I also have with me here Claire.
Hi everyone, my name's Claire McSweeney. I've come over here from the UK. I normally am an aviculturist at Whipsnade Zoo, which is part of the Zoological Society of London, a conservation charity based in the UK. And I've come over here to help Erica out here in the Sihek quarantine trailer with the eggs and with rearing the chicks. I've been here for about 3 weeks. I've got another week left, so it's been really exciting working here with Erica and with the Sihek.
Right, and so Erica, can you just explain to folks where we're at right now? Can you situate this unit?
Yeah, we're here at the Sedgwick County Zoo in Wichita, Kansas. We're behind the scenes in a trailer that's been retrofitted to be a quarantine unit. And so there's very few people allowed in the unit, so you guys are getting to see an exclusive sneak peek of our quarantine space for the Sihek. Yeah, so that's where we are currently.
And this process that they see, you do this multiple times a day from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m.,
Yeah.
basically since this project started months ago, right?
Yes, that's correct. So we feed the chicks every day from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. At first they're being fed every 2 hours, and then they gradually decrease until we can wean them after fledging. But all of the chicks are at a little bit of a different stage as far as their age. So we've got feedings at all different times during the day, really. So we're here all the time.
All right, well, I know it's just past the hour and we don't want to keep them waiting.
Yes, the chicks are hungry.
All right, so how does this begin? Can you just walk us through the process?
Yeah, so we're going to go get the first chick, which we always feed the youngest chick first. Claire's going to do the feeding, so if you want to come with me, we'll go get the first one. We've already prepped the food. It's ready to go, so let's go grab the first one. So these are special brooders to house the chicks. They're kept at very specific temperatures depending on their age. So this is our youngest chick in here. He's being kept at about 30 to 31 degrees Celsius. So we'll go ahead and take him out. We keep them in these little plastic nest cups lined with paper towel and some rubber matting for traction. And we'll change these out every feeding, but we want to make sure that we're looking closely at their fecals that they produce. That tells us a lot about their health. So once Claire's done, she'll change out the nest cup here. So she'll go ahead and feed him first. As you can see, he's very hungry. So they have that's another good indicator of health, that he has a really good feed response. So he's kind of responding to any sort of touch around his face. And I keep saying he, but we don't know the sex of this chick yet. So Claire is going to feed him a mix of chopped pinky mouse, which is just a baby mouse, whole crickets and pieces of chopped lizard, or anole, and then also small mealworms. So it's soaking in an unflavored Pedialyte just to give them some extra hydration. And you see Claire's touching his face first.
Well, I'm trying.
If he would stop biting the paper towel. She's touching his face first with a Q-tip, and that's to stimulate him to beg, because we try not to touch their face with the food first, because they're a little crazy and messy and they'll get it in their eyes or their nose. So we try to keep them really clean while we feed. It doesn't always work. We just clean them up afterwards if they get a little messy. And then the whistle that she's using, that we've talked about, if you've seen any of our previous special newscasts on KUAM News, is to help us train the birds that whistle means food. And so that will allow us, after the translocation, to recall the birds in, or at least that's the hope, so that the birds know we're trying to recall them in, that they'll get food, and this could allow us to get weights on them and do health checks.
We want to thank ZSL again for making this reporting and trip possible. Before we end the show, we wanted to give you this unique 360 video look at one of the feedings of the older chicks in the quarantine unit. Thank you so much for joining us on this special presentation of the Flight of the Sihek. You can view our full series on the KUAM News YouTube page. We look forward to sharing more updates with you in the coming months on the massive effort to save the Guam Sihek. For now, I'm Thomas Manglona reporting on Saipan.